What is grace? I hear some people say grandchildren are grace. Because there is something you not participate in them being born and all. And some people say that's grace. Because why is it grace? They're a gift. They're a blessing. They're a free gift. What else is grace? Well, grace is that I'm loved. Or grace can be a best friend. Or grace can be healthy enough to be able to get out of bed and get moving. And I see sometimes people in the hospital who are hurting and all. And then their heart widens and they look to the left and right and they say, it's small what I'm dealing with. Still grateful, because it could be so much worse than what I have it. What is grace? Well, seeing the joyful noise children sing, isn't that? Grace. That is what St. Paul writes to the Philippians about. And it's the grace, it's like this welling up of gratitude. And here you have it. Grace. What is grace in Spanish? Gracias. Grace, gracias, gratitude, they go together. They're two sides of the same coin. Grace and gratitude. And if you do not recognize yourself as blessed, as gifted, as some way of wow to be alive, then start from the gratitude part of it. And I know some of you keep gratitude journals, some of you have a gratitude bowl, some of you just lift up the plate when it's filled, ready. You can say grateful. Grateful. You may add something what you're grateful for, invite others. Doesn't need to be Thanksgiving to do it, but just the small things in life for which we can be grateful that are linked to grace, because they're a gift. Just to be alive is a wonderful gift, isn't it? The other day, I had this dream. Was digging in a field back and forth, and Max was there, and in the field at some point he was lying down, and I was looking from above from a bridge on him, and I felt in the dream this welling up of gratitude, this love that sometimes rises in us. And you know what that feels like, so it's just taking the time and paying attention to it. And that's what Paul writes to the Philippians, our first scripture reading. He says, I'm so grateful for you. Thinking of you warms my heart. And it's the congregation, it's the people he feels most fondly about. He feels like rejoice. His heart is beating faster when he thinks of them. And you know what? He feels that and he expresses that even though he's in prison. He's locked up in a rat hole. And there in the lockup, he feels love welling up and he counts blessings and he remembers especially the people in Philippi in that congregation. So no matter the circumstances, whether you're in prison or whether your prison is kind of being bound, shackled in a different way, where you feel tied up or constrained or whatever, your own limitations, it does not keep you from expressing gratitude. I think that's one of the things I treasure about this scripture reading and overall. Grace, gratitude, they belong together. Now, there are small grace things. And then there are grace in all caps. I felt like one of those grace in a kind of medium, just capital G and grace lowercase. I felt one like in the car, back in Virginia, looking to the left, looking to the right, pulling out, and in that moment I hear a screeching car coming from the right, almost hit me. I tell you what, I could feel it all over my body. That felt like, by the grace of God, I got out of this alive. The person didn't even stop. He just swerved around me, kept going, and I said like, oh my dear. Grace is for that same Paul when he was Saul, when he was after the first Christians who followed Jesus the way, when Stephen was stoned and martyred. He probably sat there, looked on and said, yes. And then he has this encounter, this strike, this whatever, and something changes. That is grace, with all caps. Or John Newton, the one who wrote Amazing Grace, the song. On a boat, slave trader, all engrossed in all of that. At some point there was this storm. He felt like overcome. They started throwing off all the ballast from the boat, whatever they could, just to survive. And they made it through alive. And based on that, he wrote Amazing Grace, and he became an abolitionist, saying no one should be enslaved, no one should be slave, and we can extend that. Capital, all caps grace. And this very grace can be scandalous, my friends. It can be scandalous. That's what Matthew writes about. Those who work 1 hour per day get paid a daily wage. Those who slaved all day long, put in blood, sweat, and tears, hard work, they get paid the same. Now, that's not fair. That's not how you run a company. That's not how church works when we come to the finances. That's not like our usual way how we think of earning something. But it becomes a little bit more understandable, a little bit more clear when we know that a day's wage was enough for one family to be fed for one other day. So those who had work only for 1 hour because no one else had hired them, they were there, they wanted to earn enough to feed their family for one day. They received enough to feed their family for one day. That makes more sense, doesn't it? Everyone should have enough to feed their family. And that's where kind of makes me think, and where I hurt when I read child poverty is on the rising. I feel like no child should go hungry. No child should not have enough to eat and their basic needs covered. And this parable, to me, it's connected to the older brother. We just talked about it at our study. The older brother who sees dad welcoming home the one who was lost, who squandered it, who blew it, who was just done. The older brother who slaved, who worked all his life says, "Really? Really?" That's how I often feel too, that part in me. And then Jesus says there is something about a great reversal that this parable points us to, a great reversal. And to me, that great reversal is a little bit like the attitude of, I earned it all. I worked hard. It's all mine to keep. I have it made. It's all mine. That is the one who have worked all day long. I know that. That is missing out on that it's all a gift. Your strength, your life, that you're alive, that you can work, that you are engaged, that you're all leaning in and working hard. And I'm not against working hard. I think we're gifted people. Apply yourself, do the work. But it's missing the second half. And the second half is what I understand Jesus like saying, blessed are those who are poor in spirit. Blessed are those who are aware of their need for God. Can you see that other side? Recognizing, in spite of having enough or having whatever, deep down, there is a hole that only God can fill. There is a need for me, a hole in my heart for God. And over laboring, grabbing, holding, all of that, I miss that there is another realm of grace, recognizing I'm in need of God, and everyone is in need of that. So we have a habit on Sunday, right after church, we go home. I change clothes. I go to Maud's Pizza. I do my build your own pizza veggie. Sigrid orders her Panera chicken avocado melt. I pick it up on my way home. Then we sit on the couch, a British mystery on, and we say one of our prayers, grace. We say grace, what we grew up with. Alle guten Gaben, alles was wir haben, and it keeps going on like that. Or we have like 3 from which we can pick. And then we turn on the TV and we eat, and sometimes we forget, and I feel like, yeah, it's good to remember again. What is grace to you? What are you grateful for? And how does it show?